Captain Sarah stared at the holographic display floating above her command console, her coffee growing cold as the alien transmission played for the third time. The universal translator struggled with the unfamiliar language, producing choppy, mechanical words that still managed to convey raw desperation. Please, anyone who receives this, children taken, human younglings, slavers, coordinates follow. The bridge of the UES Retribution fell silent except for the steady hum of life support systems. Its crew of 37 hardened veterans had seen their share of horrors across the galaxy, but something about this particular distress call made the air feel heavier. "Ma'am," Lieutenant called from the communications station, his voice tight. "The signal originated from the 442 system. That's deep in neutral space, beyond our normal patrol routes." Turned to face her tactical officer, Commander James Park. His usually calm demeanor had shifted to something more dangerous. "What do we know about slavers?" Park consulted his, fingers moving quickly across the surface. "Not much in our official databases. They're listed as a Class 3 hostile species. Reptilian, highly organized, known to operate in the Outer Rim territories. But ma'am," he paused, meeting her eyes, "there are unconfirmed reports about their methods. They supposedly target what they call exotic specimens for wealthy collectors across the galaxy." The word exotic hung in the air like a poison cloud. Every human on the bridge understood the implication. In a galaxy filled with species that had evolved on garden worlds with perfect climates and abundant resources, humans were indeed exotic. They came from Earth, a death world where everything from the weather to the wildlife seemed designed to kill its inhabitants. "Lieutenant," commanded, "what's the status of that transmission? How old is it?" Worked frantically at his console, running the signal through multiple analysis protocols. "Signal degradation suggests it was sent approximately 18 hours ago, ma'am. The transmission strength indicates they were using emergency equipment, possibly from a damaged ship." Felt her jaw clench? 18 hours. In 18 hours, those children could be anywhere in the galaxy, sold to collectors who viewed humans as nothing more than dangerous pets. She had seen the underground trade networks before during her years with Galactic Intelligence. Wealthy aliens paid astronomical sums for creatures from death worlds, keeping them in elaborate habitats like living museums. "Commander Park, what's our current mission status?" "We're 3 days out from our scheduled patrol of the Vega sector. Admiral expects our report by week's end." Park's tone suggested he already knew where this conversation was heading. Nodded slowly, her mind already working through the implications. The UES Retribution was a Devastator-class warship, one of only 12 in the human fleet. Its primary mission was protecting human shipping lanes and maintaining diplomatic relations with allied species. Deviating from assigned patrol routes to chase down slavers in neutral space would require authorization from Colonial Command. Authorization that would take at least 48 hours to obtain. "Ma'am," Ensign Williams spoke up from the sensor station, her young voice carrying a note of barely controlled anger. "I'm picking up additional data buried in the transmission. Looks like whoever sent this managed to encode some tactical information." Moved to Williams Station, studying the scrolling data on her screen. The young officer had an exceptional talent for extracting hidden information from damaged signals, a skill that had proven invaluable during their previous missions. "What am I looking at, Ensign?" Williams highlighted several sections of code. "Ship identification markers, ma'am. The distress call came from a civilian transport called the New Horizon. Registry shows it as a family immigration vessel bound for the Tau colonies. According to the manifest," her voice faltered. "Continue, Ensign." 43 families on board, ma'am, including 71 children under the age of 16. The number hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. 71 children. Thought of her own daughter, safe in the Sol system, attending academy prep school. These children had been traveling with their families toward a new life among the stars, probably excited about their adventure. Now they were cargo in the hold of a slave ship. Commander Park stepped closer to his position. "Captain, if we modify our route now, we could reach the 442 system in 36 hours. The Retribution sensors should be able to track any slaver vessel, even if they're using stealth technology." Appreciated Park's loyalty, but she also understood the broader implications. "James, we both know the diplomatic situation with the Galactic Council. Humans are still considered newcomers. if we conduct an unauthorized military operation in neutral space. With respect, ma'am, Lieutenant interrupted, there are international laws regarding the protection of civilians from slavery. The Galactic Slavery Prevention Act of 2387 gives any member species the right to pursue and engage slavers regardless of territorial boundaries. Raised an eyebrow, was usually focused solely on communications and rarely offered tactical opinions. You seem well-versed in galactic law, Lieutenant. His cheeks flushed slightly. My sister works for the Galactic Human Rights Commission, ma'am. She's briefed me on these situations before. According to Article 7, Section 3, any military vessel has not just the right, but the obligation to respond to legitimate distress calls involving civilian slavery. The captain felt a surge of pride in her crew. They weren't just following orders or seeking glory. They were showing the kind of moral courage that had made humanity respected among the stars, despite their relatively short time in galactic society. Very well, announced, her voice carrying the full authority of her command. All stations prepare for course alteration. Navigation, plot a direct route to the 442 system, maximum sustainable velocity. Aye, Captain, came the chorus of responses. Chief Engineer Martinez's voice crackled through the comm system. Captain, if you're planning to push the engines hard, I recommend we modify our power distribution. We can divert energy from non-essential systems to increase our maximum velocity by 12%. Make it happen, Chief. How long until we reach the system? At maximum velocity with power modifications, 34 hours and 16 minutes, ma'am. Nodded grimly, still too long but better than their initial estimate. Communications, send a priority message to Colonial Command. Inform them of our situation and our intended response. Make sure they understand we're operating under the Galactic Slavery Prevention Act. Message sent, ma'am. As the Retribution changed course, found herself studying the tactical display showing their new route. They would be traveling through 3 different star systems before reaching 442, each with its own potential hazards. More concerning was what they might find when they arrived. Commander Park, I want a full tactical analysis of slaver operations. Crew complement, typical ship configurations, weapon systems, everything our intelligence networks have on file. Park was already working at his station. Aye, ma'am. I'll also reach out to some of my contacts in the intelligence community. There might be unofficial information that could help us. Ensign Williams looked up from her station. Captain, I'm continuing to analyze the distress signal. There might be more encoded information, but it's heavily corrupted. Should I try to clean it up? Do it. Any additional intelligence could make the difference between success and failure. As the crew worked with focused intensity, allowed herself a moment to consider the broader situation. The galaxy was vast, containing thousands of species with different moral codes and cultural values. The Galactic Council tried to maintain order, but enforcement was often lacking, especially in neutral space where jurisdiction became murky. Humanity had joined the galactic community only 47 years ago, after achieving faster-than-light travel. They were still proving themselves worthy of respect among species that had been exploring the stars for. Some aliens viewed humans as barbaric primitives from a savage world. Others saw them as dangerous upstarts who might upset the careful balance of galactic politics. But there were also those who recognized something unique about humans: their willingness to risk everything for strangers, their refusal to accept injustice, even when it would be easier to look away, their capacity for both tremendous violence and profound compassion. Ma'am, Commander Park called out, I've got preliminary intelligence on operations. It's not encouraging. Moved to Park's station, where he had assembled a tactical briefing on his main display. The information painted a picture of a sophisticated criminal organization with military-grade equipment and decades of experience. Typically operate in small fleets, Park explained, highlighting ship schematics. Usually 3 to 5 vessels, with their primary slaver ship being heavily armed and shielded. They prefer to hit isolated targets in neutral space, far from any government patrols. What about their ship's capabilities? Their main vessels are modified heavy cruisers, roughly equivalent to our destroyer class. They sacrifice cargo space for weapons and defensive systems. Speed is typically their primary advantage. They're built to hit fast and escape before any response can arrive. studied the specifications, nodding the preference for energy weapons and stealth technology. What about their tactics when confronted by military vessels? That's where it gets interesting, M. According to these reports, rarely engage in direct combat if they can avoid it. They prefer to scatter their fleet and use their superior knowledge of local space to escape. However, Park paused, highlighting a section of the report. There are incidents where they've chosen to fight rather than risk losing valuable cargo. The implication was clear. If they viewed their human captives as particularly valuable, they might be willing to fight to keep them. Felt her stomach tighten at the thought of those children caught in the middle of a space battle. Any intelligence on their holding facilities, where they might keep prisoners? Park switched to a new display showing ship schematics. Modified cargo holds, usually with basic life support. They keep captives alive but in minimal conditions. The goal is to deliver them to buyers as quickly as possible. Lieutenant suddenly looked up from his station, his face pale. Captain, I've got an incoming transmission from Colonial Command, Priority Alpha. On screen, the holographic display shifted to show Admiral, her weathered face grim with concern. Was a veteran of the border wars and had earned respect throughout the human fleet for her tactical brilliance and unwavering moral standards. Captain, I've reviewed your situation report. I want you to understand that what you're proposing carries significant political risks. Understood, Admiral, but those are human children. Nodded slowly. I agree completely. That's why I'm authorizing your mission under Emergency Protocol 7. You have full discretionary authority to take whatever actions necessary to recover those civilians. Felt a surge of relief. Emergency Protocol 7 essentially gave her carte to engage any hostile forces without worrying about diplomatic consequences. Thank you, Admiral. Don't thank me yet, Sarah. Intelligence suggests this particular operation might be larger than typical. We're detecting increased communication traffic in that sector, which could indicate multiple slaver vessels or possibly a regional command ship. The situation just became more complicated. A regional command ship would mean facing a vessel roughly equivalent to their own capabilities, plus whatever escort ships it might have. Admiral, if we're facing a major operation, shouldn't we request additional support? His expression darkened. The nearest human naval vessels are 4 days away, and our alien allies are reluctant to get involved in what they consider an internal human matter. You're on your own, Captain. Had expected as much. The galactic community's response to human problems was often limited by political considerations and species loyalty. Many aliens simply didn't understand humanity's compulsion to protect strangers, viewing it as inefficient or even dangerous. Understood, Admiral, we'll handle it. I know you will, and Sarah, make sure those children come home. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in thoughtful silence. Looked around at her crew, seeing the determination in their faces. These were professionals who had volunteered for deep space service, knowing they might face situations exactly like this one. All right, people, we have our orders. Commander Park, I want battle plans for multiple scenarios. Assume we're facing anywhere from 3 to 8 enemy vessels, with at least one major combatant. Aye, ma'am. I'll coordinate with Chief Martinez on weapons and shield configurations. Ensign Williams, keep working on that signal analysis. Any additional information about the enemy force composition or the hostage's condition could be vital. Working on it, Captain. Moved to her command chair, settling in for what would likely be a long 34 hours. Around her, the crew worked with quiet efficiency, each focused on their part of the mission. The Retribution's engines hummed with increased power as they raced toward the 442 system at maximum velocity. She thought again about those 71 children, probably huddled together in some dark cargo hold, terrified and confused. Their parents were likely dead or imprisoned separately, standard practice for slavers who wanted to minimize resistance. The children would be alone, scared, and completely dependent on strangers to save them. Had never had children of her own, dedicating her life to the space service instead. But every human child represented the future of their species among the stars. They carried humanity's hopes and dreams, the potential to explore new worlds and build relationships with alien species their parents could never have imagined. Captain, Chief Martinez's voice came through the comm system. I've finished the power redistribution modifications. We're now maintaining 13% above standard maximum velocity. At this rate, we should reach the 442 system in 33 hours and 42 minutes. Excellent work, Chief. How are our weapon systems? All primary and secondary weapons are fully operational. I've also prepared modifications to our shield harmonics that should be effective against typical energy weapons. Appreciated Martinez's thoroughness. The chief engineer had served on destroyers during the border wars and understood that preparation often meant the difference between victory and defeat. Commander Park approached her chair with a containing his preliminary battle plans. Captain, I've outlined 3 primary scenarios based on the intelligence we have. Reviewed the plans, nodding Park's characteristic attention to detail. Each scenario included multiple contingencies and fallback positions, accounting for various enemy fleet compositions and tactical responses. Your recommendations, Commander? I suggest we approach the system using the asteroid field on the outer rim for concealment. If we can observe the enemy before they detect us, we'll have a significant tactical advantage. Nodded, the element of surprise would be crucial, especially if they were facing a superior force. What about the hostages? How do we ensure their safety during any engagement? Park's expression grew more serious. That's our primary challenge, M. Ships are known to have deadman switches connected to their cargo holds. If they detect incoming weapons fire, they might. He didn't finish the sentence. Understood. The slavers might choose to kill their prisoners rather than let them be rescued. It was a common tactic among criminal organizations designed to discourage rescue attempts. Then we need to disable their ships without giving them time to react. What about targeted EMP strikes? Possible but risky. EMP weapons would also disrupt life support in the cargo holds. We'd have to board and secure the prisoners within minutes. The tactical challenge was becoming clear. They needed to neutralize multiple enemy ships simultaneously while keeping at least one slaver vessel intact enough to preserve life support for the hostages. It would require precise coordination and probably some luck. Ensign Williams suddenly looked up from her station, excitement in her voice. Captain, I've managed to decode additional information from the distress signal. There's tactical data about the force composition. And Park immediately moved to Williams' station. The young officer had managed to extract what appeared to be observational data from the New Horizons sensors before the ship was captured. According to this data, they have at least 5 ships in their formation. 2 heavy cruisers, 2 medium escort vessels, and what appears to be a command ship. Park whistled low. 5 ships, that's a major operation. Williams continued her analysis. There's more, sir. The command ship appears to be significantly larger than typical vessels. The sensor profile suggests it might be a converted battle cruiser. Felt her stomach drop. A battle cruiser was roughly equivalent to their own ship's capabilities, but if it had been modified for slaving operations, it might have enhanced weapons or defensive systems. Any information about the hostage's location? Williams highlighted another section of data. The New Horizons crew managed to observe the transfer operation before their ship was destroyed. The children were separated into 3 groups and loaded onto different vessels. The news was both good and bad. Spreading the hostages across multiple ships made it less likely that all would be killed in a single action, but it also complicated any rescue operation significantly. Which ships, Ensign? 2 groups were loaded onto the heavy cruisers, and 1 group went to the command ship. The adults were kept on a separate escort vessel. Exchanged glances with Commander Park. Rescuing hostages from 3 different ships while fighting a 5-vessel enemy force would require perfect coordination and exceptional luck. Commander, modify your battle plans accordingly. We need strategies for simultaneous boarding actions on multiple vessels. I'll coordinate with Sergeant and the Marine contingent. As Park moved away to work on the revised tactical plans, remained at Williams' station, studying the decoded intelligence. The picture it painted was daunting, but not impossible. The Retribution was one of humanity's most advanced warships, crewed by veterans with extensive combat experience. More importantly, they were fighting for children. In its experience, that kind of motivation could overcome significant tactical disadvantages. Williams, keep analyzing that data. Look for any information about the enemy ship's capabilities, crew complement, or defensive systems. Aye, Captain. Returned to her command chair, her mind working through the tactical challenges ahead. In 33 hours, they would drop out of hyperspace in the 442 system and likely face the most difficult battle of their careers. She thought about the alien species who viewed humanity with suspicion or contempt, calling them violent primitives from a savage world. They weren't wrong about the violence part. Humans could be incredibly destructive when motivated by anger or desperation. But they consistently misunderstood the source of that violence. It wasn't random aggression or primitive bloodlust. It was protective fury, the same instinct that had helped humanity survive on a planet where everything wanted to kill them. Those slavers had made a critical error. They had threatened human children, and now they were about to discover why species from Deathworlds were so dangerous. Smiled grimly as the Retribution raced through hyperspace toward what might be the most important battle of their lives. The slavers were about to learn that taking children from a Deathworld species was a mistake they would never have the chance to make again. 29 hours after receiving the distress call, the UES Retribution dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the 442 system. Captain stood on the bridge, watching as her crew immediately began scanning for any sign of the slaver fleet. "Passive sensors only," ordered quietly. "I want to see them before they know we're here." Lieutenant worked intently at his station, filtering through the electromagnetic noise of the system. 442 was a young star system with significant asteroid activity, providing excellent cover for both hunters and prey. The challenge would be locating 5 ships in millions of cubic kilometers of space. "Captain," Ensign Williams called out softly, "I'm detecting multiple energy signatures in the inner system. They're trying to mask their presence, but their fusion reactors are producing detectable neutron emissions." Moved to Williams' station, studying the sensor display. The young officer had become remarkably skilled at extracting useful information from minimal data during their journey to the system. "How many signatures?" "At least 4 confirmed, possibly 5. They're clustered near a large asteroid cluster approximately 40 million kilometers from the primary star." Commander Park joined them at the sensor station. "That's consistent with tactics. They prefer to conduct business in locations that provide easy escape routes and protection from long-range sensors." Nodded, studying the tactical display. The asteroid cluster would provide the enemy with natural cover while also limiting the Retribution's ability to maneuver. Any engagement would likely take place in close quarters with limited visibility. "Commander, what's the status of our boarding preparations?" "Sergeant has organized 3 Marine squads for simultaneous boarding actions. Each squad is equipped with portable life support and emergency medical supplies for civilian casualties. We've also prepared additional shuttles with expanded passenger capacity for extraction." Felt a surge of pride in her crew's preparation. They had spent the entire journey planning for every conceivable scenario, and their professionalism was evident in every detail. "What about our weapon systems?" "Chief Martinez has configured our main batteries for precision strikes. We're loaded with low-yield warheads designed to disable ships without causing catastrophic damage. The goal is to neutralize their ability to fight or flee without compromising life support in their cargo areas." The tactical challenge remained daunting. Disable 5 enemy ships without giving them time to harm their prisoners, then board and secure hostages from 3 different vessels, all while fighting in an asteroid field that limited maneuverability and sensor effectiveness. "Captain," spoke up from the communications station, "I'm detecting encrypted transmissions between the enemy vessels. They appear to be conducting some kind of business." Felt her jaw clench. The slavers were likely negotiating the sale of their human cargo, possibly to buyers who had traveled to this remote location specifically for the transaction. Every minute they delayed increased the risk that those children would be transferred to other ships and lost forever. "Can you decode any of the transmissions?" "Working on it, M. The encryption is sophisticated, but I might be able to break it given enough time." Time they might not have, made a command decision. "Navigation, plot an approach course through the asteroid field. Use the largest rocks for concealment, but get us within weapons range as quickly as possible." "Aye, Captain, plotting course now." As the Retribution began its stealthy approach through the asteroid field, gathered her senior officers for a final tactical briefing. The ship's main conference room felt cramped with all department heads present, but she wanted everyone to understand the mission parameters. Ladies, we're about to attempt one of the most challenging rescue operations in recent naval history. We're facing 5 enemy vessels, possibly more, in terrain that favors defenders. Our primary objectives are the recovery of 71 human children and any surviving adults. Sergeant, the Marine commander, leaned forward. Captain, my teams are ready for immediate boarding action. We've studied the ship's schematics Williams extracted from the distress signal. We know where the prisoners are likely being held. Appreciated's confidence, but she also understood the risks involved. Sergeant, your people need to understand that the enemy might have deadman switches connected to the prisoner areas. If they detect boarding actions, they might choose to eliminate the evidence. Nodded grimly. We've discussed that possibility, M. Each team is equipped with emergency medical supplies and portable life support systems. If we detect any threat to prisoner safety, we're prepared to breach multiple hulls simultaneously. Chief Engineer Martinez spoke up from across the table. Captain, I've been analyzing the sensor data Williams collected. These ships appear to have significantly upgraded power systems compared to our intelligence estimates. They might have enhanced weapons or defensive capabilities. The news wasn't surprising, but it wasn't welcome either. Criminal organizations often invested heavily in military upgrades to protect their operations from law enforcement. What kind of upgrades are we looking at, Chief? Enhanced shield generators, possibly improved weapons targeting systems. The command ship in particular shows power signatures consistent with military-grade equipment. Commander Park consulted his tactical notes. If they've made significant modifications, our current battle plans might need adjustment. We were counting on superior firepower to neutralize them quickly. Studied the faces around the table. These were experienced professionals who had faced difficult situations before, but this mission pushed the boundaries of what their single ship could accomplish. All right, here's what we're going to do. We approach under stealth until we're within optimal weapons range. Then we hit them with everything we have, focusing on disabling their engines and weapon systems. The moment their ability to flee or fight is compromised, we launch boarding actions on the 3 ships containing prisoners. What about the other enemy vessels? Park asked. Secondary targets. If they surrender or flee, we let them go. Our priority is recovering those children, not engaging in extended combat with every slaver in the system. The briefing continued for another 20 minutes as they refined tactical details and contingency plans. When it concluded, remained in the conference room with Commander Park and Sergeant to discuss the most sensitive aspects of the operation. Jim, be honest with me. What are our actual chances of success? Park considered the question carefully. If everything goes according to plan, maybe 60%. If we encounter unexpected complications or enemy capabilities, much lower. Leaned back in his chair, his face thoughtful. Captain, my Marines have been talking. They're not concerned about the tactical challenges. They're motivated by the knowledge that children are depending on us. I've never seen them more focused. Appreciated's perspective. The Marine contingent aboard the Retribution consisted of veterans from multiple conflicts, individuals who had volunteered for the dangerous job of boarding hostile vessels in combat situations. Sergeant, your people understand they might not all come back from this. Yes, M, and they've made their peace with that possibility. We all signed up to protect human civilians. This is exactly the kind of situation we trained for. Nodded, feeling the weight of command settle more heavily on her shoulders. In a few hours, she would order these professionals into an extremely dangerous situation with uncertain odds of success. Some of them might not survive, but all of them were willing to take that risk for children they had never met. All right, let's go save some kids. They returned to the bridge to find the Retribution carefully navigating through increasingly dense asteroid formations. The ship's advanced sensors and navigation systems allowed them to thread between rocks the size of small mountains, but their progress was necessarily slow. Captain, Williams reported from the sensor station, we're now within detailed scanning range of the enemy fleet. I'm detecting 5 vessels as previously estimated. 2 heavy cruisers, 2 escort ships, and 1 command vessel that's definitely larger than our intelligence suggested. Moved to the tactical display, studying the enemy formation. The ships were arranged in a loose defensive pattern around what appeared to be a natural clearing in the asteroid field. The command ship occupied the center position, with the other vessels spaced around it in a protective formation. Any signs that they've detected our approach? Negative, M. Their sensors appear to be focused outward from the system, watching for incoming threats from hyperspace. They're not actively scanning the asteroid field. Park joined at the tactical station. Their formation suggests they're confident in their security. Either they're not expecting pursuit, or they believe their location provides adequate protection. Studied the enemy positions, noting several tactical advantages and disadvantages. The clustered formation would allow them to concentrate firepower on any attacker, but it also meant all 5 ships were within range of the Retribution's weapons. Commander, how close do we need to get for optimal weapons effectiveness? For maximum accuracy against multiple targets, approximately 200,000 kilometers. Any closer and we risk being caught in their defensive crossfire. Lieutenant suddenly looked up from his communications station, his face pale. Captain, I've managed to decode portions of their transmissions. They're discussing the transfer of prisoners to buyer vessels. Felt ice form in her stomach. Transfer when? The conversation suggests buyer ships are already en route. Estimated arrival time is 4 hours. 4 hours. If those children were transferred to buyer vessels, they would disappear into the galactic underground market and likely never be seen again. The buyers would scatter to dozens of different star systems, making any rescue attempt virtually impossible. Change of plans, announced to the bridge crew. We're moving to immediate attack positions. Navigation, get us to optimal weapons range as quickly as possible while maintaining stealth. Aye, Captain, adjusting course. The next 30 minutes passed in tense silence as the Retribution maneuvered through the final section of asteroid field, separating them from the enemy fleet. Watched the tactical display as they closed to within optimal range, her finger hovering near the weapon's authorization control. All stations report ready, Captain, Park announced. Very good. Communications, open a channel to the enemy fleet. Worked quickly at his console. Channel open, M. Activated the ship's main communications system, her voice carrying the full authority of the human fleet. Attention vessels. This is Captain Sarah of the United Earth Ship Retribution. You are holding human civilians in violation of galactic slavery prevention laws. Release your prisoners immediately and surrender for processing. The response came quickly in heavily accented Standard Galactic. Human vessel, you have no authority in this system. Depart immediately or face the consequences. Had expected that response. Slavers rarely surrendered without a fight, especially when they had invested significant resources in acquiring valuable cargo. I'll ask one more time. Release the prisoners and surrender. Your request is human. You are 1 ship against 5. Leave now and we will allow you to depart unharmed. Looked around the bridge at her crew. She saw determination in every face, along with carefully controlled anger at the slavers' dismissive attitude. Commander Park, lock weapons on all 5 targets. Prepare for simultaneous engagement. Weapons locked and ready, Captain. Took a deep breath, knowing that the next few minutes would determine the fate of 71 children and possibly her entire crew. All stations, battle stations, fire. The Retribution's main batteries erupted in coordinated salvos, sending precision-guided missiles toward each of the 5 enemy vessels. The weapons had been specifically configured to disable rather than destroy, targeting engines and weapons systems while avoiding areas likely to contain prisoners. The enemy fleet reacted with surprising speed, their ships immediately breaking formation and returning fire. Energy beams and missile salvos filled the space between the opposing forces as both sides sought to gain tactical advantage. Direct hits on targets 1 and 3, Park reported as explosions lit up the tactical display. Both ships show disabled engines and compromised weapon systems. Watched as 2 of the enemy vessels immediately began drifting, their power signatures indicating severe damage. But the other 3 ships had managed to avoid the worst of the initial salvo and were now maneuvering for counterattack. Incoming missiles, Williams called out from the sensor station. Multiple warheads, high-yield explosive. Evasive maneuvers, ordered. Point defense systems engage incoming missiles. The Retribution's automated defense systems opened fire on the incoming missiles, destroying most of them before they could reach their target. But several warheads managed to penetrate the defensive screen, exploding against the ship's shields and causing the entire vessel to shake from the impact. Shield strength down to 73%, Martinez reported from the engineering station. No hull damage, but we can't take many more hits like that. Studied the tactical situation as the battle continued around them. 2 enemy ships were disabled, but the remaining 3 were proving more resilient than anticipated. The command ship in particular seemed to have significantly enhanced defensive systems. Commander Park, focus all firepower on the command ship. If we can disable their leader, the others might surrender. Concentrating fire on primary target. The Retribution's weapons systems pivoted to engage the enemy command ship, sending a concentrated barrage of missiles and energy beams toward the larger vessel. But the command ship's shields proved remarkably effective, absorbing the damage with minimal apparent effect. Their shields are significantly stronger than our intelligence estimated, Park reported. We're going to need sustained fire to penetrate their defenses. Realized they were facing a more capable enemy than anticipated. They had clearly invested heavily in military upgrades, probably using profits from their slaving operations to purchase advanced defensive systems. Captain's voice came through the comm system from the Marine preparation area. My teams are ready for immediate boarding action. We can launch as soon as you disable any of their ships. Looked at the tactical display, noting that 2 enemy vessels were already dead in space. Those would be their primary boarding targets, but they needed to confirm which ships contained prisoners before committing their Marines. Williams, can you scan the disabled ships for life signs? We need to know which ones have prisoners. Williams worked frantically at her sensor controls. Scanning now, Captain. The interference from the battle is making it difficult, but I'm detecting multiple human life signs on both disabled vessels. Felt a surge of relief. At least some of the prisoners were on ships they could reach safely. Sergeant, prepare your teams for boarding action on the 2 disabled vessels. Priority is securing prisoner areas and establishing life support. Teams launching now, Captain. As the Marine shuttles departed the Retribution, turned her attention back to the ongoing battle. The 3 remaining enemy ships were still fighting, but their coordination had deteriorated following the loss of their companions. Park, what's the status of the remaining targets? 2 escort ships and the command vessel. The escorts are moderately damaged but still combat-capable. The command ship appears to have taken minimal damage. Watched as one of the escort ships suddenly broke off from the battle and began accelerating toward the outer system. The ship's captain had apparently decided that discretion was the better part of valor. Let him go, ordered as Park prepared to pursue. Focus on the command ship. The remaining escort ship continued fighting alongside the command vessel, but their tactical situation was rapidly deteriorating. The Retribution's superior firepower was beginning to tell, and both enemy ships were showing signs of significant damage. Captain, called out from communications, I'm receiving a transmission from one of our boarding teams. They've successfully secured the first disabled ship and are evacuating prisoners. Felt her heart rate increase. How many? 26 children and 8 adults recovered from the first ship. All alive, some requiring medical attention. 26 children safe. Allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before refocusing on the ongoing battle. There were still 45 more children somewhere in this system, probably aboard the command ship that was proving so difficult to disable. Status on the second boarding team. His voice came through clearly despite the ongoing battle. Second team has secured their target ship. They're reporting 15 more children and 4 adults. The prisoners are in poor condition but stable. 41 children recovered. Felt the tension in her shoulders ease slightly, but they still needed to account for the remaining 30 prisoners. Williams, can you scan the command ship for human life signs? Williams adjusted her sensors, trying to penetrate the command ship's defensive systems. Affirmative, Captain. I'm detecting approximately 30 human life signatures aboard the command vessel. The math worked out. All the missing children were aboard the one ship that had proven most resistant to their attacks. Studied the tactical display, noting that the command ship's shields were still holding despite sustained bombardment. Commander Park, we need a new approach. That ship's defenses are too strong for conventional weapons. Park consulted his tactical readouts. Captain, I recommend a coordinated close-range assault. If we can get within their shield perimeter, our weapons should be more effective. Understood the implication. Moving within the enemy's shield perimeter would expose them to point-blank weapons fire, but it might be their only option for disabling the command ship without destroying it. Do it. Navigation, close to point-blank range with the command ship. I, Captain, closing distance. As the Retribution moved closer to the enemy command ship, could see the detail of the enemy vessel more clearly. It was indeed a modified battle cruiser, probably stolen or purchased from some military surplus dealer. The modifications included enhanced weapon systems and what appeared to be additional armor plating. Entering point-blank range, the navigation officer reported. All weapons fire. At close range, the Retribution's weapons proved devastating. Energy beams and missile salvos struck the command ship's shields and hull with tremendous effect, causing visible damage to the enemy vessel's superstructure. But the enemy ship wasn't defenseless. Return fire at point-blank range caused the Retribution's shields to fluctuate dangerously, and several energy beams managed to strike the hull directly. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 9, Martinez reported. Emergency teams responding, shield strength down to 40%. Watched the tactical display as both ships hammered each other at close range. It was becoming a question of which vessel would suffer critical damage first. Their shields are failing, Park announced with satisfaction. One more coordinated salvo should disable their primary systems. Do it. The Retribution's final salvo struck the command ship just as its shields collapsed, causing massive damage to the enemy vessel's engines and weapon systems. The ship immediately began drifting, its power signature indicating severe system failures. Target is disabled, Park reported. They're dead in space. Felt a surge of relief, but she knew the most dangerous part of the mission was still ahead. Boarding a disabled enemy ship that contained 30 frightened children would require extreme care and precision. Sergeant, prepare for boarding action on the command ship. Be advised that 30 prisoners are somewhere aboard that vessel. Acknowledged, Captain. Third team is launching now. As the Marine shuttle approached the disabled command ship, found herself holding her breath. The next few minutes would determine whether their mission succeeded or failed. Those 30 children had been prisoners for over 24 hours, probably terrified and possibly injured. Captain, Williams called out from the sensor station, I'm detecting additional ships approaching from the outer system. Multiple contacts, origin unknown. Felt her stomach drop. Additional ships could mean reinforcements for the slavers, or possibly the buyer vessels mentioned in the intercepted communications. How many ships? At least 6 contacts, possibly more. They're approaching at high velocity and will be within weapons range in approximately 15 minutes. Realized their tactical situation had just become much more complicated. They had successfully disabled the slaver fleet, but now they faced the arrival of unknown vessels while their Marines were aboard enemy ships attempting to rescue prisoners. Commander Park, what's our current combat readiness? Shield strength is at 40% and slowly regenerating. We have minor hull damage, but all primary systems are operational. We could handle another engagement, but not against 6 fresh ships. Studied the tactical display, weighing their options. They could order their Marines to abort the boarding actions and attempt to flee the system, but that would mean abandoning the 30 children still trapped aboard the command ship. Alternatively, they could stand and fight, hopping to hold off the approaching ships long enough to complete the rescue operation. But if those were buyer vessels with military-grade escorts, the Retribution might not survive the encounter. Communications try to raise the approaching ships, find out who they are and what they want. Worked at his console, attempting to contact the unknown vessels. No response to our hails, Captain. They're maintaining communication silence. Made her decision. They had come too far and risked too much to abandon those children now. All stations, prepare for combat against multiple hostiles. We hold our position until our people complete the rescue operation. As the bridge crew prepared for another battle, thought about the children trapped aboard the command ship. They had probably heard the sounds of combat and felt their ship being damaged. They might be even more terrified now than when they were first captured. But help was coming. Human Marines were boarding their prison ship at that very moment, ready to risk their lives to bring those children home safely. Smiled grimly as she watched the approaching ships on the tactical display. Those unknown vessels were about to discover what happened when someone threatened human children. They were about to learn why species from Deathworlds were so dangerous when protecting their young. Captain Marine Team 3 has successfully breached the command ship. Sergeant's voice crackled through the communication system. We've encountered minimal resistance. The crew appears to have abandoned their posts. Felt a mix of relief and concern. Minimal resistance was good for her Marines, but it might also indicate that they had triggered whatever contingency plans they had for their prisoners. Status on prisoner location, Sergeant. We're moving through the ship systematically, M. Initial scans suggest the children are being held in a modified cargo bay in the lower section of the vessel. As team worked to secure the command ship, kept one eye on the approaching unknown vessels. The 6 contacts were now 12 minutes out and showed no signs of slowing or altering course. Commander Park, assuming those are hostile vessels, what are our tactical options? Park studied his displays before responding. With our current shield strength and the ongoing boarding operation, we're severely limited. If we try to maneuver aggressively, we might lose communication with our Marines. If we stay stationary, we become an easy target. Nodded grimly. They were committed to holding their position until the rescue was complete, regardless of what was approaching. What about using the asteroid field for cover? Possible, but risky. Some of those asteroids are large enough to cause significant damage if we miscalculate, and we'd still need to maintain proximity to the command ship. Lieutenant suddenly looked up from his communications station, his face showing confusion. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the lead ship in the approaching formation. There. They're identifying themselves as Defense Force. Felt her eyebrows rise in surprise. They were a species known for their strict moral code and their hatred of slavery in all its forms. They were also one of the few alien species that had consistently supported human expansion into the galaxy. Put them through, Lieutenant. The main display shimmered and resolved into the image of a tall, gray-skinned alien with large, dark eyes and distinctive cranial ridges. Recognized the uniform of a military officer, though she couldn't identify the specific rank insignia. Human vessel, this is Fleet Commander of the Defense Force. We have been tracking the slaver operation and arrived to provide assistance. Felt a surge of relief so strong it was almost physical. Instead of facing 6 additional enemy ships, they had gained powerful allies. Fleet Commander, this is Captain Sarah. We appreciate your assistance. We're currently conducting rescue operations to recover human prisoners from the slaver vessels. His large eyes seemed to focus intently on through the display. Captain, our intelligence indicates that this operation is part of a larger network. The vessels you have engaged are only a small portion of their total fleet. The news was both encouraging and concerning. It was good to know they had disrupted a major criminal operation, but it also suggested that they might have reinforcements available. Fleet Commander, our immediate priority is recovering 71 human children who were taken from a civilian transport. Can your vessels provide security while we complete the rescue operation? Affirmative, Captain. My ships will establish a defensive perimeter. The people have no tolerance for those who prey upon younglings. As the vessels moved into protective positions around the battle site, felt the tactical situation shift dramatically in their favor. 6 warships provided more than adequate security against any possible reinforcements. Sergeant, report on prisoner recovery. His voice carried obvious excitement. Captain, we've located the children. All 30 are alive and in relatively good condition. They're scared and some show signs of dehydration, but there are no serious medical emergencies. Closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of command ease significantly. All 71 children were safe. The mission was a success, regardless of what challenges remained. Outstanding work, Sergeant. What's the status of prisoner evacuation? We're preparing to move them to our shuttle now. The ship's life support is failing, so we need to work quickly. Turn to Commander Park. Prepare the medical bay for incoming casualties. I want our best medical personnel standing by to treat dehydration, trauma, and any other conditions these children might have. As the evacuation proceeded, found herself studying the tactical display showing the defensive formation. The alien ships were larger and more heavily armed than the Retribution, designed for extended patrol operations in dangerous sectors of the galaxy. Fleet Commander's voice came through the communications system again. Captain, my sensors indicate your vessel has sustained damage. Do you require assistance with repairs? Appreciated the offer, but she was more curious about how they had arrived at exactly the right moment. Fleet Commander, might I ask how you happen to be in this system? This seems like an extraordinary coincidence. His expression shifted to what interpreted as satisfaction. Not coincidence, Captain. They have been tracking this operation for several months. When we detected your ship entering the system, we accelerated our own schedule. Felt pieces of a larger puzzle beginning to fit together. You've been hunting these slavers. Indeed, this particular group has been operating throughout the sector, targeting what they consider exotic species for sale to private collectors. Your species, Captain, has become increasingly valuable in those markets. The comment made stomach turn. Humans had been in galactic society for less than 50 years, and they were already being targeted by criminal organizations because of their Death World origins. How extensive is this operation? Our intelligence suggests a network of at least 20 ships operating across multiple star systems. The vessels you encountered today represent their regional command structure. Realized they had accomplished more than just rescuing the children. By disabling the regional command ships, they had likely disrupted the entire slaver network's operations in this sector of the galaxy. Captain's voice interrupted her thoughts. All prisoners have been evacuated successfully. We're returning to the Retribution now. Felt a wave of relief and satisfaction. Acknowledged, Sergeant, outstanding work by all your teams. As the Marine shuttles returned to the Retribution, watched the tactical display showing the disabled ships. 3 vessels were dead in space, 1 had fled the system, and 1 remained partially functional but with no apparent desire to continue fighting. Commander Park, what's the status of the surviving enemy vessels? 2 ships are completely disabled, and their crews have abandoned ship. The 3rd vessel has minimal power, but is attempting to send distress signals. Considered their options. The disabled ships likely contained evidence about the broader slaver network, but they didn't have the personnel or resources to conduct detailed investigations while caring for rescued children. Fleet Commander, would your people be interested in taking custody of the captured slaver vessels? They probably contain valuable intelligence about the broader operation. An excellent suggestion, Captain. My ships are equipped for detailed forensic analysis of criminal vessels. We would be honored to complete this investigation. As the ships moved to secure the disabled slaver vessels, turned her attention to the most important aspect of their mission. 71 human children were now safe aboard her ship, but they would need medical attention, psychological support, and eventually transport back to human space. Medical Bay, report on the condition of our rescued passengers. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the ship's chief medical officer, responded from the medical deck. Captain, I've completed initial examinations of all 71 children. Most are suffering from mild dehydration and emotional trauma, but there are no life-threatening conditions. 3 children require additional attention for minor injuries, but all are expected to make full recoveries. Felt another wave of relief. The children were safe and healthy. Doctor, what about psychological support? These children have been through an extremely traumatic experience. I'm coordinating with Counselor Williams to provide appropriate support. Many of the children are asking about their parents. His relief dimmed slightly. They had recovered the children, but many of the adults from the transport ship were still missing or possibly dead. The rescued adults could provide information about what had happened to the others. Sergeant, what's the status of the adult survivors we recovered? 12 adults total, Captain. They're providing information about the attack on their transport ship. According to their accounts, the separated families immediately after capture. Closed her eyes, understanding the implications. Separating families was standard practice among slavers, designed to minimize resistance and prevent coordinated escape attempts. Are any of the rescued adults able to provide information about the missing people? His voice carried grim news. According to the survivors, approximately 15 adults were transferred to other ships before we arrived. They were taken to different locations for separate sale. Felt anger building in her chest. 15 more people, probably parents desperately worried about their children, were still in the hands of slavers somewhere in the galaxy. Fleet Commander, do you have any intelligence about where the missing adults might have been taken? His response was immediate and determined. Captain, my fleet will continue hunting the remainder of this slaver network. Any humans we locate will be recovered and returned to your people. Appreciated the commitment, but she also understood that the galaxy was vast and those 15 people might never be found. At least their children were safe, though explaining the situation to traumatized youngsters would be extremely difficult. Captain, Dr. Martinez's voice came through the communication system. The children are asking to speak with you. They want to thank the person who rescued them. Felt her throat tighten with emotion. These children had been through hell, and they wanted to express gratitude rather than focus on their trauma. Tell them I'll be down to the medical bay shortly, Doctor. Left Commander Park in charge of the bridge and made her way to the medical deck. As they descended through the ship, she thought about what she might say to children who had lost their parents and been held captive by aliens who viewed them as merchandise. The medical bay was unlike anything had ever seen. 71 children of various ages were scattered throughout the normally sterile compartment, some receiving medical treatment, while others simply sat quietly with blankets wrapped around their shoulders. Dr. Martinez approached as she entered. Captain, they've been remarkably resilient. Children often recover from trauma more quickly than adults, and knowing they're safe has made a significant difference. Looked around the room, noting the range of ages from toddlers to teenagers. Some were crying quietly, while others seemed to be comforting younger children. Despite everything they had been through, they were taking care of each other. A girl who appeared to be about 10 years old approached directly. She had brown hair and serious dark eyes that seemed much older than her chronological age. Are you the captain who saved us? Knelt down to bring herself to the girl's eye level. I'm Captain, my crew and I came to bring you home. The bad aliens said nobody would come for us. They said humans were too weak to find us. Felt a flash of anger at the psychological cruelty the children had endured. Well, they were wrong, weren't they? The girl smiled for the first time since it entered the medical bay. Very wrong. When we heard the fighting, we knew someone had come to help us. Looked around the room at the other children, noting that many were listening to their conversation. What's your name? Emma. My parents were on the ship with us when the aliens attacked. Felt her heart sink, but she tried to keep her expression neutral. Emma, we're still looking for the missing adults. We won't stop trying to find them. Emma nodded seriously. I know, but even if... She paused, seeming to gather her courage. Even if they don't come back, we'll be okay. We have each other, and now we have people who care about us. The maturity in the young girl's statement was both heartbreaking and inspiring. These children had experienced something no child should ever face, but they were already showing the resilience that characterized their species. Spent the next hour moving through the medical bay, talking with individual children and learning their stories. Many had been separated from siblings during the initial attack and were joyfully reunited during the rescue. Others were still processing the loss of their parents and the trauma of captivity. But in every case was struck by their strength and their gratitude. Instead of focusing on their suffering, they wanted to know about the rescue operation, about the ship that had saved them, and about when they could go home. When finally returned to the bridge, she found Commander Park coordinating with the fleet about the disposition of captured slaver vessels and evidence. Status report, Commander. They have secured all 3 disabled slaver ships and are conducting detailed forensic analysis. Initial findings suggest this operation was indeed part of a much larger network spanning multiple sectors. Nodded, settling into her command chair. What about our own status? Chief Martinez has completed temporary repairs to our hull breaches. We're fully operational and ready to return to human space. They have offered to escort us to the edge of their territory. Appreciated the alien gesture. They were one of the few species that had consistently treated humans as equals rather than dangerous primitives or useful tools. Communications: send a priority message to Colonial Command. Inform them of our successful rescue operation and request instructions for the care and placement of 71 orphaned children. Message sent, Captain. Studied the tactical display showing the aftermath of the battle. 3 destroyed or disabled slaver ships, 1 fled enemy vessel, and evidence of a criminal network that had been preying on innocent civilians throughout the sector. But most importantly, 71 human children were safe and on their way home. Whatever challenges lay ahead for these youngsters, they would face them as free citizens of the human colonies rather than as property of alien collectors. Fleet Commander, my government will want to express formal gratitude for your assistance today. Your intervention was crucial to the success of our mission. His image appeared on the main screen, his expression showing what interpreted as satisfaction. Captain, cooperation between our species benefits us both. They have great respect for humanity's commitment to protecting its young. Felt a surge of pride in her species and her crew. They had traveled across the galaxy to face overwhelming odds because children needed their help. That kind of moral courage was what made humans worthy of respect among the stars. Fleet Commander, if you locate any of the missing adults during your continued operations, please notify Colonial Command immediately. Of course, Captain. The hunt for the remainder of this criminal network will continue until every prisoner is recovered. As the combined human and fleet prepared to depart the 442 system, reflected on the broader implications of their mission. Word would spread throughout the galactic community about how humans had responded to the kidnapping of their children. Some species would view their actions as reckless or overly aggressive. Others might see them as a dangerous precedent that could destabilize the careful balance of relations. But suspected that criminal organizations throughout the galaxy would draw a different conclusion. They would learn that targeting human civilians, especially children, brought swift and overwhelming retaliation from a species that didn't believe in proportional response when protecting their young. Navigation: set course for the Sol system, maximum sustainable velocity. Course laid in, Captain. As the Retribution entered hyperspace for the journey home, made her way back to the medical bay one final time. The children were settling in for the long journey, many of them finally able to sleep peacefully for the first time since their ordeal began. Emma was sitting with a group of younger children, reading them a story from a digital tablet one of the crew members had provided. She looked up as approached. Captain, will you tell us about Earth? Most of us have never been there. Settled into a chair near the group of children. What would you like to know? Is it really as dangerous as the aliens say? Are there really animals, and whether that try to kill people? Smiled, thinking about how to explain their home world to children who had been born among the stars. Earth is a challenging place to live, but it's also beautiful and amazing. The danger is part of what makes it special. How? Asked a boy who appeared to be about 8 years old. Because living on a dangerous world made humans strong and brave. It taught us to take care of each other and never give up when things get difficult. Emma nodded thoughtfully, like how you came to rescue us even though it was dangerous. Exactly like that. Earth taught us that family isn't just the people related to you by blood, it's anyone who needs protection and care. Looked around at the 71 children who had become orphans through tragedy, but had also become part of something larger. They were now part of the human family in the most fundamental sense, and that family would ensure they were loved and cared for regardless of what challenges lay ahead. Captain, Emma said quietly, when we grow up, some of us want to join the space service like you. We want to help rescue other people who need help. Felt her throat tighten with emotion and pride. These children had experienced the worst that the galaxy could offer, but instead of being broken by it, they were already thinking about how they could help others. I think that would be wonderful, Emma. The galaxy needs more people who understand the importance of protecting those who can't protect themselves. As the Retribution carried its precious cargo toward human space, thought about the message their successful mission would send throughout the galaxy. Humanity had been part of galactic society for less than 50 years, but they were already establishing their reputation as a species that could be counted on to do the right thing, regardless of the cost. The slavers had made a critical error when they targeted human children. They had assumed that one ship against 5 represented impossible odds, that humans were too weak or too few to mount an effective rescue. They had failed to understand that humans didn't calculate odds when children were in danger. They didn't weigh costs and benefits or consider diplomatic consequences. They simply acted with whatever resources they had available because protecting the innocent was more important than personal safety. That was the lesson spreading throughout the galaxy's criminal underground. Humans were a death world species, and when their young were threatened, they responded with the full fury of evolution that had shaped them on the most dangerous planet in known space. The slavers who escaped would carry that message to others, and word would spread that humans made poor targets for criminal enterprises. Not because they were physically superior or technologically advanced, but because they were willing to risk everything for strangers who shared nothing but species membership. Smiled as she watched the children finally sleeping peacefully, surrounded by the protection of a ship and crew that had crossed the galaxy to bring them home. This was why humans deserved their place among the stars, not because of their technology or their military might, but because of their willingness to stand up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. The galaxy was about to learn that threatening human children was a mistake no one made twice.